So we have finally arrived. Years of me making content and people think I'm joking about this, but I'm not. Barry Darsow is a wrestling hero and legend. Now sure, it's Repo Man that I've always focused on, but that character when I was young basically summed up what pro wrestling was for me. It was like a light bulb went off in my brain. I was like, wait a minute, you can just do whatever you want in sports entertainment, and as long as it's fun, and as long as it's entertaining, and as long as everybody agrees, then the world is your oyster. I don't even like oysters. It was just totally wacky in the best possible way, because why would somebody whose job was to repossess things also decide, well, I better go be a pro wrestler? That is proper 2 + 2 = potato, but it warms my heart. The truth of the matter though is that actually when you do go through Barry Darsow's whole career, well, he may indeed be the most interesting man in professional wrestling history. Started off in Hawaii of all places in 1983 before he moved to Georgia Championship Wrestling and Mid-South, when somebody went, nah man, you should be Crusher Darsow, and they made him into a Russian. Do not forget as well, this was despite him being Barry from Minnesota. We were like, you should be a Soviet Union sympathizer. And just to make this very clear, we teamed him with Nikita Koloff, so nobody was gonna get confused. Boo these two people and boo them now. We soon got rid of the Darsow entirely, so he could just be Crusher Khrushchev, and then we pushed this man hard. I mean, he beat Terry Taylor for the television title, and while that only lasted around a month, because he dropped it back to Terry, who cares, man? You've just walked into a brand new territory, and somebody's giving you gold. That's the job. Wrestling then went wrestling, because Barry moved to Florida, when once again he was put in a tag team, but this time he was buddying up with the one and only Jim Neidhart. That October they won the tag team titles, which was pretty good. It was also a very short reign, because in just 8 weeks they went and dropped them to Mark and Jay Youngblood. The NWA and Jim Crockett Promotions then must have realized we've got something with this guy, because they gave him a call, and this is when we went all in, because we took the Crush Man, we teamed him up with Ivan and Nikita, so once again, you couldn't make a mistake here. It wasn't like, oh, I don't know what to do, you've been slapped around the face with it. They also became the Trios champions here, which was quite the news, because it was like, oh no, Russia is invading America, dun dun dun. It was very of its time, you know the deal. The Koloffs already had the tag team championship, so they went all Freebird here. It was like, listen, we understand that it's Nikita who happened to hold these prizes, but if we want Barry to come in, of course he wasn't Barry again, he got back to being the Crusher, that's what's gonna happen. They're also feuding with the Rock and Roll Express, and while if you're a young pup that may go over your heads, it's a massive deal, and they even tangled with the Road Warriors. This lot were an absolute success. In July 1985, they were finally overcome because Ricky Morton and Robert Gibson did go on to win the titles, which brings us to the one and only Starcade. Now, somebody must have thought there was more to this Crusher guy than we were letting on, because he took on Sam Houston for the NWA Mid-Atlantic Championship, and flub me went and won it. So look at this guy. He must have had something. He was racking up belts like it was nothing. And that sounds like I'm dropping bars, so it must be true. January wasn't ideal because Khrushchev actually hurt his knee, so he had to take 6 months off. But do you think that stopped him? No, as soon as he was healed, he was good to go again. Because by the time he was 100%, it turned out his old friend Nikita was feuding with Magnum TA, so you already know what K-Dog did. He basically cast distraction so Koloff could use the Russian chain. And that's right, these damn Hills had done it again and they won. He and Ivan then won a tag team tournament to become the brand new USA tag team champions. So once again, you just have to keep ticking those boxes. What a wonderful asshole he was. Like, he wasn't winning these for any type of honor, but that wasn't the point, which is why when some people go, oh man, he was just one single character and nothing else, you haven't looked into your history book. It was actually Magnum's horrible career-ending injury that did change all this too, because that's when Nikita was like, oh man, I shouldn't have been such a bad guy, and he started to walk the path of the righteous. And he even turned on his fake Russian friends to team with Dusty Rhodes, so now they were doing those matches too. And listen, if you do not understand how big Dusty was back then, well, you can just go on YouTube and see it. It spun out into Crusher and Ivan defending their tag team titles against Ron Garvin and Barry Windham of all people, which actually had extra meaning behind it. Darsow's contract was up, and he had decided to leave the promotion because he was about to go to the WWF. Now this was in 1987, and do not forget the major part of this story. Vince McMahon had basically looked at the Road Warriors but wasn't able to hire them, so as ever, he was like, ha ha ha, I'll just make my own version of them. That's when he recreated Demolition. And go back and look at the presentation, it's not hard to figure out. And actually, he already had his smash, but this was Moondog Rex. But everybody knew who Moondog Rex is, so even though he was coming out in the attire, the fans would just go, that's Moondog. So eventually the company was like, well, someone new's gonna have to go in here. This isn't working at all. And that gave the massive thumbs up to Barry Darsow. Turned out to be a stroke of genius because Axe and Smash were so damn good together, and eventually we took manager Johnny Valiant and we threw him out the window. We brought Mr. Fuji in, because once again these guys were going to be super bad. Brought us to WrestleMania 4 where they actually defeated Strikeforce for the tag team titles. This was essentially the beginning of the end in terms of them being villains, because after a while everybody loved them. I mean, once again, look at them, they are too cool. Not that too cool. Fuji then went mad with corruption because he decided he was going to manage the powers of pain instead. But actually, that was going to tie into the story too. Because once again, Demolition at this point were just getting cheers. And Mr. Fuji, he was a bad guy manager, so we had to shuffle the deck. It really was a huge shift because by 1989, they had lost their titles to the Brainbusters. But guess what they were doing in October? They were winning them back because once again, just to ram this through your throats, people absolutely adored Axe and Smash. Andre the Giant and Haku then beat them, which kind of does make all the sense in the world. But as ever, they were always in the plans because we got to WrestleMania 6 and Demolition got their revenge. Like Britney Spears, they did it again. And do not forget, throughout all of this, Demolition would break the tag team record, which is what the New Day were talking about a couple of years ago. When we got to 1990, and for some reason Vince McMahon went, I think I should throw another guy into the mix. And of course that would be Crush, also known as Bryan Adams. Now I suppose this must have come from the Crockett days too, because now these three were able to use the Freebird rule. Actually, there was some sad news behind this. Because we basically soon learned that Axe was actually going to have to leave the company and not wrestle as much due to a bunch of injuries. When Crush got into some trouble too, and he was also let go and everything was going bad. It just meant the losses to the Hart Foundation and the Legion of Doom basically drew a line under Demolition. And of course, one of these reasons was because they'd lost their clientele. But what name did I just drop in there? The Legion of Doom. Vince finally got his Road Warriors, and the OGs, at least for the World Wrestling Federation, basically got shown the door. By 1991, poor Barry was essentially languishing at the bottom of the card, which is when his creative brain kicked in. He decided to create a character for the ages. Because in August, Davey Boy Smith, the British Bulldog, did beat him for the 1, 2, 3. And then we were never going to see this version of Darsow again. Because it was indeed Barry that went to Vince and said, okay man, I get it. You want all these over-the-top gimmicks. You want all these over-the-top characters. Well, I've got one that you can definitely do. Let me put on a mask. Let me carry around a tow rope. And I wear a t-shirt that has some tire tracks on it. And do you know what we can call him? Repo Man. Now, of course, it ties into the whole WWF in the early 90s when everybody did have to have a secondary job. But it really makes me laugh, because in the world of kayfabe, it means in his daytime, he actually was repossessing things, and then at evening, he decided to beat people up. The other thing is, though, that's not what happened, because Repo Man wasn't repossessing anything, at least when he went to the WWF, because he was a criminal, and he was stealing things, such as the Macho Man Randy Savage's hat. And I tell you this, Randy Savage was not happy. Of course, Repo Man was meant to be a heel so he could get away with this. And he had the iconic line, what's mine is mine, what's yours is mine too. Sometimes when I'm feeling sad, I say this out loud, and I kid you not, dear watcher, it actually cheers me up. Now, the rumors have always been that the ring attire he did wear was actually inspired by Frank Gorshin's version of the Riddler, and if that is true, I love it even more, because in case you want to know more about me, which you definitely don't do, I'm a huge Batman guy. So Barry Darsow must be a huge Batman guy, and if he's not, I don't want to hear it. Repo Man also would use that tow rope and threaten to tow people's cars in case the urge took him. This is why I love it as much as I do. Go and find me any other industry or profession where you'd be able to get away with this. I'm 99% sure it doesn't exist. People also forget that it was Repo who screwed over Virgil so the $1 Million Man could win back his $1 Million championship. And when we pulled the trigger on that at SummerSlam, people went crazy for Virgil. So Repo Man was now a piece of trash. Like an elephant, he never forgot too, and eventually he went after the British Bulldog. So I'm going to argue that this feud was super duper layered. This got kind of flubbed up in 1992 because he took that rope again and essentially hanged the Bulldog. Once again, we're talking about the early 90s here. It was meant to be kids' TV, was a little bit flubbed up. Sadly, he was never able to beat Davey Boy Smith when WWF had the best opportunity to go meta here, because Crush was brought back to the company and these two started to feud, but for some reason their past in Demolition was never mentioned, and I always thought that was a missed opportunity. I mean, you wouldn't get away with that in 2024. Social media would go bonkers. This is when we did get the extra program because Repo Man stole Randy Savage's hat, which I do always. When he got beaten by Typhoon in 1993, once again, he kind of realized this wasn't going to go anywhere, and he actually left the promotion. Now soon he was out there with the IWA doing tag team wrestling again, when his phone made some noises, and do you know who wanted to bring him in? It was flipping WCW. This was 1994. Once again, he had the best gimmick, where he would play a fan in the crowd. When babyfaces walked out, he would just squeeze this horn really loud, because, you know, he wanted to piss them off and essentially distract them so they'd lose the match. So that is why Barry Darsow is the best. You can go through every facet of his career, and this dude just wanted to have fun. He was Cyndi Lauper. This somehow got him arrested too, although I think it was down to Dustin Rhodes. That's when we found out Barry's new name. He was gonna be the Blacktop Bully. He also had Colonel Rob Parker and his manager, then he got fired. Whoops. Now, everybody's always said it's because when he was doing this feud with Dustin, they had this hardcore war where they bled all over the place. And back then, World Championship Wrestling didn't want to see any of the red stuff. So they actually said, I'm sorry, my friend, you gotta go. This was also the infamous King of the Road scrap, which has actually been talked about a lot since then, when eventually he did get his job back with WCW. And if you are aware of his run, you know what's coming next. He decided, despite it being the late 90s, I'm going to be a wrestling golfer, or he called himself Mr. Hole-in-One. And before matches, he would tell his opponents, listen man, here is some golf stuff. If you can get a hole-in-one, we don't have to fight. Of course, it was just a big ruse. I mean this, look into my eyes, somebody should bring this back. Now I do want to point out the fact this was happening in 1998 was a little bit weird, but I just think that Barry Darsow always brought a bit of fun to proceedings. So many times, especially in modern day wrestling, we forget that's the magic word, because if you aren't watching and having fun, what is the point? This is your life, damn it. One day you're gonna be dead. It also kept him in WCW till late 1999, when of course he was part of the WrestleMania 17 gimmick battle royal. And I do believe there was a retro Raw where he did turn up as Repo Man again, but that must have been like 2007. And of course Mania 17 was 2001. So let's just go with 2001 because it makes my point better. You're telling me it's been over 2 decades since we've seen the Repo Man? You have 2 choices. Either 1, tell Barry Darsow to get his ass down to a Monday night soon, or 2, I'll do it and I'll be Repo Man reborn. Demolition, of course, have reunited a few times, both at conventions and on the indie scene. And a big chat out there is the fact they haven't been inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. And the rumor has always been it's because they were part of a concussion lawsuit. Now, I don't know if that's true or not true. But what I do know, if you are talking about plaudits and you are talking about people that deserve it, Demolition should absolutely be in. In many ways, they changed the game. We've also mentioned that legendary tag team run they did happen, which was mentioned on WWE TV within the last 5 years. So as a fan, not knowing the real details, I shall keep everything crossed that this happens soon. But yes, I did just want to stand here today in October 2024, or November I should say, and just tell you that Barry Darsow is a hero of mine, and it will always have a special place in my tum-tum. It also just goes to show you that you don't have to be a WrestleMania main eventer or walk away with millions of dollars. You can get into doing something you're passionate about, and the absolutely bizarre cast of characters you do come up with, well, it can mean something to somebody, because I'm quite literally that guy. Oh yes, that's just my mini love letter to Barry Darsow or Repo Man. You can pick whichever one you want, because I don't think we're nice enough in wrestling sometimes. Especially with the sports entertainers from back then, they would bust their ass and work 250 days a year. So it's like nowadays where people say, always take the picture. Well, I can't take a picture with him because he's not here right now. What I can do is use my daft platform to say, Barry Darsow, thank you very much.